So it seems throughout history that there will always be something that gets forgotten about. Sometimes it's because the majority chooses to forget about it since it's objectively bad, or sometimes it's because it gets created at an inopportune moment in time. Sly Cooper Thieves in Time manages to fit both of those reasons. The vast majority of the criticisms stem directly from the franchise's fan base, and the game released pretty late into the PS3's lifecycle. Y'all enjoyed my Sly trilogy review, so I thought what better way to follow up than to make a review on the last game ever made in the series. Enter Sly Cooper Thieves in Time, released in 2013 on the PlayStation 3. I remember after Honor Among Thieves, Sucker Punch shifted their focus towards the infamous series. So who took on the responsibility to make Sly 4? Well, I'm glad you asked, little Timmy. For the first time in the series, a new company called Sanzaru took on the role of developing Sly 4. And goddamn, did they have some big Shaquille O'Neal-sized shoes to fill. Unfortunately, they couldn't fill them, and that's what I'm here to discuss today. In this video, I'm going to be drawing many comparisons between Sly 2 and Sly 4 because Sly 2 is my favorite game in the original trilogy. I personally think Sly 2 is objectively the best game in the franchise, and if you disagree with me, you can debate me in the comments. I also see a case that can be made for Honor Among Thieves, but I wasn't a fan of some of the missions in it. With that disclaimer out of the way, let's get right into this.
But as time went on, the old itch came back, and I knew I needed to pull a heist.
So we begin with Sly explaining where everybody left off from the last game. Surprisingly, there were already some problems and we're only 5 minutes in. I took a little note of what Sly had said that bothered me. He said, and I quote, "But as time went on, the old itch came back and I knew I just needed to pull off a heist." Sly? Did you forget the circumstances you were in that made you quit thieving in the first place? Your life was on the line when Dr. M's monster was about to kill you, and you said all you could think about was Carmelita and how you wanted to put y'all's differences aside and try to make things work. Did that mean nothing to you? You pretended to have amnesia, thereby giving up your life of crime so you could be together with Carmelita. Was that gesture meaningless to you all of a sudden? Whatever, let's continue. The call to action was that the pages of the Thievius Raccoonist were disappearing shortly after Penelope went MIA while she and Bentley had been working together on his time machine. Keep this plot point in mind, as it will be important later. And Murray was in the demolition derby, so I have no problems there. The next problem I had was how Sly 4 wanted to be Sly 2 so bad in the beginning intro mission. They had the characters shrouded in darkness just like in the original trilogy, but the reason why I mentioned Sly 2 particularly was because I thought they handled the National Museum / intro mission the best. After all, Sly 4 used the same setting that Sly 2 did for its intro mission, a museum, and I said earlier that I was going to be drawing comparisons to Sly 2 to prove my points. Sly 4 also had the splash effects to reveal what the characters' roles were. Brains, Brawn, and Thief, but for some reason they decided to demote Carmelita to the ex-girl. But they're kind of forgetting that she was always the badass who went around locking up criminals. She was always more than just an object for Sly's affection, if you know what I'm saying. She led a platoon to go after Dr. M, so I don't get why they relegated her to just the ex-girl. It's really disappointing if you ask me. So after Bentley was trying to find Penelope, he decided to transform the team van into a time machine so they could warp back in time to each timeline in the Thievius Raccoonist and stop the pages from being erased. He left a book with Dimitri in the present to monitor what errors they needed to look out for, and he provided some sort of Star Wars communication device that allowed for communication with him. Before we move on, I have yet another problem, and this goes with my first problem. It was the writing. So remember how I said that Sly wanted to get back into thieving for no reason at all? Well, he had a reason with the pages of the Thievius Raccoonist disappearing, so they could have taken that line of dialogue out of the script and it wouldn't have changed anything. Especially because the time machine required an artifact from that specific time period in order to get to that time, which was what they stole from the museum anyway. Basically what I'm saying is Sly would have gotten into thieving anyway, and he shouldn't have even said that he wanted to get back into thieving for no reason. Y'all will see soon that I had issues with the writing in this game moving forward, and that will become a pattern. I'd tell y'all to make a drinking game out of it if I didn't fear for your safety. So y'all remember how I said Dimitri is back? Well, he doesn't have a single line of dialogue. Yeah, they put one of, if not the best characters in the game, but they didn't even give him a single line of dialogue. It genuinely felt like a punch to the gut. I would have been happier if he just wasn't even in the game, period, because that was what made him so special, was his dialogue.
Funny how things work out sometimes.
The main selling point of Thieves in Time was getting to meet and play as the different Cooper ancestors. Ryoichi Cooper owned a famous sushi restaurant in the first chapter, and he was evidently the inventor of sushi. Somehow a criminal from modern day shows up in feudal Japan, and he locks up Ryoichi, takes his cane, and puts the entire city on lockdown. So it's up to Sly to break him out so Ryoichi can get the restaurant up and running again. Yes, I already have problems with this chapter. 1. The writing. So you would think breaking Sly's ancestors out of jail would stop the pages in the Thievius Raccoonus from being erased. But why wasn't there any mention of the Thievius Raccoonus from any of Sly's ancestors? Shouldn't at least one of them have had the earliest versions of the book at any point of the game? I get that Sly had the newest version of it, but it still should have existed in the timelines that they traveled back to, unless they traveled specifically before each of Sly's ancestors had added to the book. But then if that was the case, none of Sly's ancestors would have been able to perform any of their abilities, like the rail slide or the spire jump, because in Sly 2, it was implied that a Cooper would need to read the Thievius Raccoonus in order to perform said ability. Y'all see where I'm going with this, right? Let me break it down. Sly freeing Ryoichi means that Ryoichi adds the spire jump later to the Thievius Raccoonus, but the game contradicts that because Ryoichi is using it when we play as him, which implied that he knew how to use it before he got locked up by El Jefe. So if Ryoichi already knew the spire jump before he was locked up, why did his page get erased from the Thievius Raccoonus in the present day? Unless learning the thief move didn't work like how it did in the original trilogy, and Sly's ancestors just knew these abilities naturally. But like I said, that would contradict the rules that were established in the original trilogy. Plus, not a single one of them showed Sly any of the older versions of the book. Either way, it's bad writing. 2. The plan to stop El Jefe made no sense in any modicum of the word. So all we do is tail El Jefe to figure out how to open a gate, get some fish for Ryoichi, get some poison so we can put the guards to sleep, even though Bentley can already put the guards to sleep. And then Murray dresses up as Madame Geisha and dances sexually while a bunch of guys ogle him on stage. I genuinely had no fucking clue what was happening. In the mission briefing, Bentley couldn't even get past opening a gate and causing a distraction, which the distraction never even happened. We open a gate, deflect some fireballs, then we do some basic jumps with Ryoichi so we can open another gate, and then Sly just starts fighting El Jefe, which was a really annoying boss fight. I just didn't understand how we were going to actually stop him from disrupting time. Were we just gonna whoop his ass and then leave him in the present with a little gift bow on his head for Carmelita to come in and swoop him up? Apparently he needed Ryoichi's cane for something, which Sly failed to retrieve anyway, so the whole fight just felt pointless. Then we see this giant blimp cart El Jefe away, and they drop a sheriff badge on their way out, which happens to be an item from the past that is specifically required to go to the exact era where time is being disrupted. Yeah, it's awfully convenient that a crucial plot device just fell right out of the sky, kinda like the SpongeBob meme where they were lost in Kelp Forest, just like how I was lost as fuck with what the hell was going on.
As if the answers to all your problems will fall right out of the sky. Fall right out of the sky.
Dude, we're falling right out of the sky. We gotta drop the load.
Upon their arrival in the Wild West, probably sometime in the 1800s, Sly learns about another modern-day criminal who was obsessed with gold in cowboy movies. Yeah, that's his entire character. He goes by the name Sheriff Toothpick, and he has got to be one of the least threatening villains in the entire franchise. All he does is prance around boasting about how much he loves his gold. For the first mission, Sly has to deface posters, pull down a banner, and steal a lollipop so he can get sentenced to prison. Sly says that it's his first time letting the law catch him, but that's far from the truth. I guess the writers kind of forgot that in Sly 2, Sly allowed Carmelita to arrest him, but that's besides the point. When I told y'all I was gonna compare this game to Sly 2, I said that for a reason. They had not one, but two jailbreak missions and a train heist, which they copied the visual where Sly climbs underneath the train car with his ancestor, Tennessee Kid Cooper, at one part of the mission. Most of the missions before didn't lead up or build up very well to the heist finale, but they were more conducive to the finale than in the first chapter. The major plot point was that Toothpick robbed a bank of all their gold and framed and arrested Tennessee for the crime, so to fix the anomaly, the gang performs a train heist in order to get back Tennessee's gold, which apparently restores the timeline, even though he still loses his cane in the end. My question is, or I suppose problem is this: if the ancestors still lose their canes, doesn't that still disrupt the timeline anyway? At first I thought freeing them was the action that saved the issue, especially because after Sly saves Tennessee, Tennessee says that he was going to get executed, so it's logical to assume that freeing him was what returned the words back to the Thieves raccoonus. But if he still loses his cane, doesn't that constitute as an abnormality to the timeline, or do the ancestors just create new canes? Another question I have is this: why does Sly tell his ancestors that he's a descendant of theirs? Wouldn't that also cause problems in the future? Thirdly, why are any of Sly's ancestors not skeptical of these so-called time travelers? They kinda just accept them and move on to complete jobs for Bentley like it's no big deal. Carmelita gets caught up in the crossfire, no pun intended, because she was investigating a black market scandal that turned out to be a famous art collector named Parodox, who was the main antagonist of the entire Thieves raccoonus time erasure fiasco. But more on that later. I'll be honest with y'all, so far I don't like this game, and we're only on the second chapter, and I have a feeling that it's gonna go downhill from here. I'm gonna mention everything I do enjoy right now, so that way if we run into anything that's negative, it comes off more funny or more impactful, whichever way you want to look at it. So the level designs so far have been beautiful. Japan was ambient with the running water and waterfalls. The rocky cliffs drew my attention and reminded me of how Ghost of Tsushima looks in a way, which anything compared visually to Ghost of Tsushima is a massive win, which Sucker Punch could have drew inspiration from when they were working on that title. The level in Chapter 2 looks gorgeous, from the bright beam of the sunset to the western infrastructure, which was a nice contrast to the previous chapter. I'm not sure if Sanzaru meant to have that juxtaposition purposefully, but if they did, good work on them. It was kinda what Sucker Punch did with Tide of Terror and Sunset Snake Eyes. Well, not quite. Sunset Snake Eyes was set in the evening after all, but you know what I mean. I did like the return of clue bottles even though I didn't collect them. I liked to have choices in my games that I, kinda like they added it but they didn't have to. So that was cool. I like the quality of life changes, for example, like completing a mission and then you get sent back to the safe house. It saves you the hassle of having to backtrack. And I also liked how they tell you who has a mission while you're in the safe house. As far as the positives go, that's all that I had to say. So with that, let's get back to roasting and criticizing this game.
What are those Neanderthals up to? Don't they know I'm busy spoiling myself?
Jean Bisson was a real threat in Sly 2. Sly fooled him one time and it was shame on him in Chapter 6, but he wouldn't get fooled again in Chapter 7. I mean, it was called Menace from the North for a reason. But Toothpick doesn't even hold a candle to John. The only time he does anything remotely threatening is when he accidentally kills one of his guards. Other than that, he's just kinda there. It really doesn't help the fact that he can do some out-of-pocket things like capturing the entire gang who just so happened to be all at the same place with the team van. I mean, in Sly 2, it took Sly getting knocked out by Rajan and Murray fighting tooth and nail against him, against all odds, only for them to suffer a devastating betrayal by Neela. That was what it took to get them all locked up. But I guess Toothpick can show up with 2 guards and they'll just surrender automatically. Carmelita crashes out on Sly like it's some kind of high school relationship drama, and I'm supposed to take Sly's side, but I can't be bothered because Sly is insufferable in this game. Then she hooks up with Tennessee. Her character is so one note. All she does is bitch and moan about how angry she is with Sly. But I guess it's alright for her to put her job on the back burner so she can have her love triangle between Sly and his ancestors. Whatever, let's just get to the climax of this chapter. So the plan is to change the route of the train so it passes underneath the bridge because the train is barreling really fast. Oh yeah, the train has Tennessee's gold on it in case y'all were not paying attention. They kind of gloss over the significance of what's happening because even I almost didn't know why they were intercepting the train on my playthrough, but it's all good. Before they can do that though, they have to battle Toothpick's guards in a bunch of random meaningless minigames to get their keys. Even though they could have just had Sly pickpocket them like in Sly 2, but I suppose they kinda just forgot about that mission or something. Once on board, Murray takes the team van so that Tennessee can blast the train cars open so they can access his gold. Then Sly whoops Toothpick's ass and Tennessee loses his cane. I hope my script doesn't get tired of me just kinda saying, and this happened, and I apologize in advance, but there's really no other way to describe this game. Get this though. Here's the funny part of the whole thing. So the train ends up on course for a cliff for some reason. Maybe it was before bridges were invented or something. But for some reason the brakes of the team van got removed. So in a last-ditch effort to save everybody, someone throws Murray's necklace into the time machine doohickey thing and they get transported back to the Stone Age or something. Yeah, I swear, that's what happened. I can't even make this shit up. How the fuck does a necklace that Murray was wearing from the present take them back to the Ice Age? I've no fucking clue what even to fathom at this point. What's even worse is now the time machine is broken and they can't communicate with Dimitri for some reason. Plus they don't know how the Parodox is able to time travel without the need of an artifact, but more on that later.
That's definitely a case of me just not knowing what to do with the script.
In 10,000 BC, Sly and the gang find a counterfeiting artist from the modern day named the Grizz. His operation involves stealing eggs for some reason, so that he can create art pieces in the past, then excavate them in the present, so he can get rich quick. He's a racist caricature who is voiced by a Caucasian man, and he acts like a low-budget version of Dimitri. Several parts of the van get taken by some of the wildlife in the area, so the gang has to retrieve them. It's a really weird chapter because there's the subplot of the Grizz causing trouble, and there's also the fact that we have to get the time machine back in order. I guess it's supposed to be the gang's low point in the game, since it's in the middle of the game. But I gotta say, it's a pretty lame concept for a chapter. Not only that, but we get introduced to another one of Sly's ancestors. I want y'all to take a guess at who it happens to be. I know this game has been out for years, but still, I want y'all to guess. Was it Thaddeus, Otto Van Cooper, maybe even Slay? Well, what if I told y'all that he wasn't even actually in the Thieves Raccoonus, period? That's right, they decided to create their own character from the ground up, literally. He's an illiterate, non-articulate, incoherent, simplistic caveman who speaks in gibberish, and his name is Bob. I'm pretty sure he's impossible to explain as a character because he's the opposite of a character. He's more like a spectator who is only important because of his special ability. What's his special ability, you ask? Well, he has the ability to scale up ice walls at a somewhat average pace. His backstory is that he loved to steal pterodactyl eggs, but one day the Grizz showed up and started getting to the eggs before he could, so as a result, Bob went into a depressive state, and then the Grizz captured him and took his cane away. So Murray has this mission where he does a Rocky training montage with Bob to whip him back into shape. which I will admit was pretty funny, I'm not gonna lie, but the mission drags on for far too long, and the motion controls were fucking ass. That's yet another problem I had with this game. It wasn't sure if it wanted to be serious or not. With all the 80s pop culture references and the cringe brain rot dialogue, I think in chapter 1, Sly walked up to one of the flashlight guards in the samurai costume, and the guard said to Sly, "A little short to be a commander." Or in the intro mission, when we play as Bentley, he says, "Last time I was in these sewers, I was just a teenager." Those are just a couple of examples, but I'm sure that there are more. I just can't be fucking bothered to wade through the footage I got. The comedic approach was a misfire for me because of the concept of the game. In the original trilogy, we were a band of thieves running from the law. The reason why they didn't try to be funny was because of the tone of each game. They still had parts where the characters would be sarcastic, but Sucker Punch knew when to dial down the humor. A perfect example of this was in Sly 2 in Chapter 7, where Bentley says to Sly that the log chopping guide is frozen in an ice wall, and Sly responds with, "So what should we do? Wait for more global warming?" You see what I mean? There it worked perfectly because they weren't trying too hard to be funny. Want another example? Well, what about the first few lines of dialogue in Sly 2? Most people remember them. Bentley says, "Breaker Alpha Foxtrot, this is the wizard. Do you read me, Sitting Duck?" And Sly says, "This is Peking Duck. I read you loud and clear, Blizzard." That's another gripe that I had with Sly 4. They completely ruined Sly as a character. Now he's just some kind of goofy ass funny guy who doesn't know when to take shit seriously. He's a completely different character now, and it's a real shame because he was the reason why I enjoyed the original trilogy so much. I always liked how honorable he was with his moral code. I loved his interactions with his enemies like the Contessa. You know, like foil characters who made him have a different outlook on the world. Sly took these bad guys very seriously, and he was always there to shut down their operations. Take his interaction with General Tsao during their fight. Sly says, "Stop this, Tsao." And General Tsao says, "No, the Panda King in his prime was glorious. With the Tsao name, a new bloodline of emperors will be unstoppable." And Sly says, "But she doesn't want to marry you." And Sly says, Tsao says, "She's a woman. She doesn't know up from down." Then Sly said, "I've faced some bad men in my time, but you, sir, are the worst." Please, nobody take that line out of context and, try to cancel me. I was just quoting Sly 3. But y'all see what I mean, right? Sly used to take the bad guys seriously, but now he's just some fumbling dumbass who won't stop telling corny ass jokes. I suppose I can't blame him since the villains in Sly 4 so far haven't really been all that threatening or menacing. Anyways, let's proceed. Murray has some kind of character arc because he can't climb up a wall of ice, so he gets discouraged that the team is ignoring his talents in favor of Bob's. It made no sense at all because he had an arc in Sly 2 where he proved himself against Rajan, so I have no fucking idea what the writers were trying to do here. It's almost like they kind of just forgot about key plot points from the earlier games, or they were trying to make all the characters or the entire timeline separate from the original trilogy. If Sanzaro was trying to use the same Murray from the original trilogy, he wouldn't have been acting like this because, in case they forgot, Murray had a whole arc where he proved himself to Rajan in Sly 2. Then later in Sly 3, he left the team to go on a spiritual journey because he thought what happened to Bentley in Sly 2 was his fault. He wanted to cleanse himself of his pain and put some positivity out into the world. He believed it was something he needed to do. But then when Bentley got injured again, he beat some ass and without hesitation agreed to join Sly to help break into the Cooper vault. Then later at the end of the game, when Murray talked to Bentley out of his crisis of faith, he stopped him from questioning if Sly was taking all of the credit. At this point in the series, if they were using the same Murray from the original trilogy, he shouldn't have any struggles to grapple with because he already had this arc. So it's really dumb how they regressed him through the same arc that he already had. Not to mention the fact that up till this point in Sly 4, I almost forgot that Murray was even in the game. because all he's done so far was dance in a geisha outfit and go fishing with Bentley. Next, we have a really annoying tailing mission where we follow the Greys so that Bentley can decrypt his cell phone. But then the Greys destroys the phone so Bentley can't get the codes, and Carmelita shows up out of nowhere because she's been gone for the entirety of the chapter, and she says that she was tailing the Greys off screen, and she managed to obtain the encryption code and where the Greys likes to hide out, which completely invalidated what the hell we just did. So it felt like the writers didn't know what to do with the script. This part of the chapter genuinely pissed me off, because the two missions leading up to tailing the Greys were long as hell, and we didn't even get anything out of them. What would have happened if Carmelita didn't show back up? Would we have had to do another set of dumbass missions to get encryption codes, even though the chapter's runtime was already padded out? Or would they just have fought the Greys and called it a day? Speaking of the boss fight, I got nothing positive to say about it. The Greys apparently tells Murray that his motivation was to ice skate. That's why he turned into to a life of crime. But I have no fucking clue anymore. What, like, his motivations made no sense. He wasn't threatening even though he's a grizzly bear, one of nature's scariest predators, and he had no clear goals. The Greys has gotta be one of, if not the worst character in the entire series. Even worse than the Mask of Dark Earth. How the hell does an inanimate object manage to be a better villain than you? That's just sad. So after Murray beats the brakes off the Greys, it's revealed that the next place that time is getting ruined at is in the United Kingdom during the medieval era, and it just so happens that the crown that the Greys was wearing was the specific item that they needed in order to get there. I already complained about the contrived idea about the convenient plot devices that they used for time travel, but this one was the least offensive, so it gets a pass. Penelope gets brought up again, and trust me, I'll get to that when I get to that. Chapter 3 was the worst chapter in the game because the missions are long as hell, the villain sucks, the drama between Sly and Carmelita was getting more and more aggravating to be reminded about, and nothing that you do in the chapter leads up to anything important. Matter of fact, it's the opposite because Carmelita swoops in and does everything for you in her off time. She might as well have had just defeated the Greys for us, so we wouldn't have had to play through that boring ass heist finale and that stupid ass fucking boss fight. This level fucking sucks and I fucking hate it.
Thanks, guys. I guess this makes up for all my screw-ups lately. Murray, we all make mistakes. It happens. But it doesn't matter because we're a team and we all have each other's backs. That's why we're unbeatable. Yeah, what he said. Today, you were the hero, Murray. And don't you forget it.
In the medieval era, Sly finds Sir Galith Cooper, an honorable chivalrous knight voiced by Yuri Lowenthal. The missions here were irritating and they were a drag to play through. What I was expecting was maybe some character growth with Sly, maybe see what kind of insight he could have learned from his ancestor, especially after the massive disappointment we had with Bob, but they somehow managed to disappoint me even further. Sly gets jealous of Carmelita and Sir Galith's love triangle, so he has a bitter interaction with her about it just because she showed a small amount of interest in him, so Sly disrespects Galith for it. Sly, didn't you revere and kinda look up to your lineage? Why would you act like this? Especially while you're on the job. Who am I even following at this point? One thing I did enjoy was the first mission where you have to eavesdrop on the robot guards to figure out where to find the materials to craft the archer costume. It gave the guards some fun character, and it was the first time that the game really did something unique when it came to mission concept. I know it was a bit trivial, but I always like seeing the guards have dialogue. It was hilarious in Sly 2 with the moose, and it was just as funny here. Plus, it was clever how they directed their conversations, which led up to helping Sly go from place to place. Another thing that was good was the level design and the music. I loved running around the hub world here. It captured the atmosphere of medieval times really well. The archer costume was my favorite one so far because you still retain the ability to run, and it was really a fun little challenge to use. Now that we've got the good out of the way, I have to keep tearing into this game. They failed to get the details right when it came to timelines once again. I had to look this up, but the feudal Japan era happened after the medieval times era, so Sir Galeth should not have known how to spire jump because that technique wasn't invented yet. Sly's relationship with Bentley by this point of the game really started to weigh on me. All their exchanges involved Sly making an awful cringy joke and Bentley telling Sly to quit it. It's been happened in the earlier chapters and I did my best to ignore it, but it's especially distracting in this chapter. Take the very first mission for example. Bentley tells Sly to go get some metal, wood, and leather so they can construct his archer costume, and Sly says, "Anything else you would like for me to pick up while I'm out? Eggs, milk, maybe some wax for your shell?" It's like, bro, you would never have, said that in the original games. What kind of master thief acts like this while on the job? I thought Sly prided himself on his humble nature. The missions here also didn't really connect to the finale, which was crucial since it had to do with the main antagonist. The villain for this chapter had the potential to be the most enigmatic and threatening so far, but man, they dropped the ball hard. It's a knight that goes by the name the Black Knight. I know it's not the most creative name, but it seemed like this scary and powerful entity at first. We didn't exactly know what their deal was, and they couldn't find any criminal background, but then the reveal happened and it all came crashing down. The Black Knight was Penelope. Yeah, I'm just as stunned as you are. It made zero sense. She betrayed Sly because she thought Bentley was wasting his potential by working with Sly. There was a line of dialogue that actually baffled me. She said, and I quote, "If only Bentley hadn't been brainwashed by Sly's honorable thief nonsense, we could have made billions selling weapons designs." Penelope? What in the fuck are you on about? Did you forget that in the last game, Sly literally let you inherit his family fortune? I guess the writers just kind of forgot about that scene where Sly left his cane next to a secret cave that housed billions and billions worth of gold and treasure, which he shared with his gang. So Penelope's entire motive was just one big plot hole. The idea that Bentley was wasting his time with Sly was a valid reason for Penelope to turn on Sly, but the way they handled the situation was so dumb. All she had to do was talk to Bentley, but instead she disappeared with the time machine schematics and sold them to the Parodox for some reason. It made no sense at all, and it also implied that she never cared about Sly from the start, which we know wasn't true. In case the writers forgot, Penelope started out as a character who really admired Sly. She poured hours and hours of research into helping him break into the Cooper vault. She was like family to Sly, but now I guess she's just like, nah, fuck that. I don't give a damn about Sly anymore. I could just commit lineage genocide on him and I wouldn't give any less of a fuck. It's just honorable thief nonsense, am I right? Even though she worked with Sly too, and she helped protect the Cooper vault, but no, that's just honorable thief nonsense. Her voice actor, also no disrespect to her, didn't do a good job at delivering her lines. But to be fair, that really wasn't her fault, it was just a lackluster script. The last problem I had with the plot twist was exactly that. It didn't change anything to the story. It's like the writers didn't even know what the definition of a plot twist even was. Take Neela from Sly 2 for example. The reason why her betrayal worked and was an effective plot twist was because it changed up important context that was established early on in the story. It provided new information. In Sly 4, you could delete Penelope from the game completely and nothing would change to the overall plot. So what the hell are we left with now? A villain that doesn't work, which means that the chapter doesn't work. Boring missions that either drag on for too long or don't go nowhere. We have a low-budget Dr. Eggman boss fight between Sly and Penelope, and then Bentley shows up last minute to play Rock'em Sock'em Robots with Penelope, where they spout terrible puns at each other, and then the chapter just ends. We don't get any closure with Penelope, and she took Sir Galeth's cane away, which means that the Cooper gang still lost after all of that. I have yet another problem with the writing. If Penelope gave the blueprints of Bentley's time machine to the Parodox, why didn't he need an item to use it? Or was that what the canes were for? If so, then how did Parodox time travel the first time? You know what, fuck it, let's just move on to 40 Thieves because I'm about to give myself a migraine trying to wrap my fucking head around how awful the writing was in this fucking game.
Carmelita, what are you doing?
Relax, Ringtail. Just keeping tabs on the Dragon Slayer.
I don't recall you watching my bag on any jobs.
Only when I'm trying to catch you. But I find Gallant charming. He has a good heart, even if he is a headstrong goof.
Then you better get going before certain goof gets himself captured again. The trick is going to be finding some quality wood, leather, and metal. Sure. Anything else you want me to pick up while I'm out? Eggs, milk, maybe some wax for your shell. You wanted to be a trapeze artist? Here's your chance. Cool. How does this sound for a stage name? The Amazing Cooperoni! Huh? Right? It's good. It sounds like bad Italian takeout. Sly, this place is locked down tighter than something. Your database security, Murray's pants.
If only Bentley hadn't been brainwashed by Cooper's honorable thief nonsense, we could have made billions in weapon design. The two most brilliant minds on the planet working together? We could have owned the world. But no matter. Once Cooper's out of the way, he'll see things my way. Poor Bentley. He's kinda cute when he's being dumb.
Sly and the gang traveled back to the Arabian Nights era to track down Salim al-Kupar. He's somewhere in hiding because a new public enemy named Miss Decibel has taken over the town. Salim and his crew of thieves attempted to steal from her, but because of her technology, the last remaining thieves got kidnapped. Miss Decibel has got to be the most forgettable character in the entire game, next to the Grizz. She basically has the same backstory as him too. She liked to play the trumpet, but she was trash at it. So one day when she was on stage to perform as a child, someone threw a tomato at her for some reason, and so she crashed out and she got a trumpet stuck in her elephant trunk. Somehow the trumpet lodged in her airway allowed her to hypnotize people. Brilliant. By the time you get to 40 Thieves, you're already mentally diminished. Your mental battery is on E. It's definitely by far one of the worst chapters in the whole entire game. I thought the levels in the last chapter were a drag to play through, but these missions take the cake for sure. You get stuck playing frustrating hacking sessions that use the motion controls, annoying and boring turret sections, and an aggravating RC chopper mission. For some reason, they got the mission order priority wrong, because damn near at the end of the chapter is when we decide to bug Miss Decibel's office. I don't really understand. The intel that we received from bugging her office was information that we already knew anyway, so it felt like, they just wanted a bug mission because they never had one. The RC chopper mission was refreshing to the mission variety, but it was agonizing. You can only drop one bomb at a time, and the bomb falls slowly, like a feather in the wind. I like the RC missions more in Sly 2 because they went by really fast, and the bombs you could drop them rapidly and fast, kinda like small little meteors. In Sly 4, the RC mission goes on for way too long because we have to do it a total of 3 times, and each time we have to do it, we get more targets to bomb, which made my patience run really thin. Oh yeah, and let's not forget about the gemstone buyer mission, since this game wants to be Sly 2 so bad. That's another problem I had with this chapter. Just like with Toothpick's level in chapter 2, they made references to the Contessa, and the setting of 40 Thieves was similar to in Sly 2. They just wanted to be Sly 2 so bad, but they didn't really know why Sly 2 was such a masterpiece. We have a tailing mission that goes on for an eternity with overtime, and in it we learn about Salim's friends who got imprisoned by Miss Decibel. We also learn that Parodox was collecting fraudulent documents from Miss Decibel that would give him royalty status in the present day, because that apparently was his grand ambition now. Even though he was already wealthy and he already had an affluent reputation, what with him being a famous art collector and everything, he wasn't satisfied with that. No, he wanted to be a king, I guess. We will learn what his reasoning was for that later, but for now, I gotta address the elephant in the room. And I'm not talking about Miss Decibel. I'm talking about the dreaded Carmelita dance section. I just gotta ask the writers something real quick. So here's my question to y'all. What were y'all smoking when you guys made this, and where can I get some? Y'all were probably waiting for me to talk about this part of the game, so let's get started. This shit is actually undefendable. Carmelita would never do anything like this. She always was this honorable, badass police officer who didn't take shit from nobody. But here they just decided to make her some kind of object to pander towards fan service. It also made no sense in any capacity because there are only 3 guards in the room. So you mean to tell me that the entire Cooper gang plus one of Sly's ancestors can't beat up 3 flashlight guards? I don't like to use this word, but that's honestly the most retarded thing that I've ever heard. It honestly takes skill to write a story this terrible. And I just want to know, like, what the hell, like, I'll ask again, what were they smoking and where can I get some? After that horrid display that I wish I could bleach my brain from, Salim tells Sly that he doesn't want to proceed, and Sly tells him that it's okay, so I have no problems there. Or that's what I would say, if he didn't get caught off screen, so it didn't even matter anyway. I bet y'all could guess what happens next as well. Salim loses his cane, so we still lose, and we beat the fuck out of Miss Decibel in the end. We return to the present where we find Parodox as the new king of England because he got away with the forged documents provided by Miss Decibel before she got arrested. I gotta keep it real with y'all. The way I've been making the script has been by playing a chapter and then writing the script for that chapter. That way I don't have to search through all of my footage. I believed that was the optimal way to make the script without forgetting what I had just played. But every chapter so far hasn't been much to write home about, and I still managed to forget what I played because the missions drag for longer than they need to, or because they don't really thread into anything meaningful for the heist finale. There's little to no stakes when it comes to the villains either. Let me draw yet another comparison to Sly 2 so you know what I'm talking about. In the Black Chateau, each mission has a cause and effect that brings everything together for the heist finale. Sly plants a bug in Dimitri's office, which assists Bentley with getting intel that Dimitri wants his guards to ring the bell on the boat for when the coast was clear. Then Sly tails Dimitri and sees him input the code to the water pump room. Thanks to these efforts, Murray destroys the water pump, which is important because that summons a repairman, and Sly pickpockets his key so Bentley can steal the truck with Murray, which they use to hook onto the nightclub sign and then pull that down directly onto the fountain, which creates a route directly to the clockwork feathers, which was made possible due to a previous mission where Bentley demolished the disco ball on the dance floor, which caused the balls to pop off of the front peacock sign. They managed to do this, and they set up foreshadowing of Neela's betrayal, and they introduced one of, if not the best characters in the entire villain roster with Dimitri. The reason why the original trilogy was so goated was because of how well thought out everything was. I'll leave a link to the original trilogy review from my channel, so please check that shit out for more information. Carmelita gets captured by Parodox somehow off screen. I'm not too sure how he captured her, considering she was strong enough to whoop General Sal's ass in the last game, and she shouldn't have got caught off guard since she's a well-trained police officer, but they wanted to incorporate stakes to the plot, so I'll let it slide, I guess.
Man, come on! You know what? Here, let me give it back to you. Oh, look at that! You fell for that too! I can't believe it, man! So, Lone Star, now you see that evil will always triumph because good is dumb.
The finale in Paris is one long mission where you play as all of Sly's ancestors to do more platforming in order to obtain all of their canes so that they can return to their original timelines, because that fixes the anomalies in their respective timelines. I already have a problem with this mission and we're not even 5 minutes in. They decided to repeat the gimmick of using Carmelita as bait like they did in the first game, except there it worked because Clockwork was a real threat and it was the first time that they had done it, so it made sense in the first game. In Sly 4, they just kind of did it just to be like, hey, let's make a reference to something just because. Another trope they leaned on that a lot of games use in their last levels was that they tried to mash up every little gameplay mechanic into one final climactic level. One game that executes this formula very well is Ocarina of Time. Little side note, I might leave a card up here because I played it on my channel if y'all want to check those gameplays out. But what I'm saying is Ocarina of Time had the final level with Ganon's castle use this trope, and it worked tremendously in that game. Even though a few of the chambers were kind of bullshit to play since they were pretty complicated. In Sly 4 on the other hand, we play as all of Sly's ancestors and we do a bunch of basic jumps up to a platform. I was gonna make this criticism a long time ago, probably in chapter 2, but I forgot to. This entire game loves to use platforming. It's generous to even call what we're doing a stealth game, which kinda defeats the purpose of Sly. Sure, there are enemies with visual cones just like any other stealth game, but this game fails on that aspect because the guards are too easy to escape from. All you have to do is run in a straight line for like 3 seconds and then they lose you. In Sly 2, if you were spotted, guards from every direction would converge at your location, so they really punished you for getting spotted. They even had guards who would shout loudly to alert the other nearby guards, but here in Sly 4 they don't do that, and that was like really weird. Anyway, moving on, I have yet another problem with the writing. It's the Parodox. His whole entire motivation is that his pops was trying to steal something, but Sly's pops got to it first. That was his whole entire motivation. It made zero sense. Like, why is Sly at fault for your father's incompetence? He said that he wanted to prove that he was the greatest thief around, and that's why he wanted to erase Sly's family name out of existence, but Le Parodox never actually did any thieving of his own. The game tells us that he masterminded robberies, not that he actually stole anything himself. So I don't understand. Sly even rebuttals that to him about the Cooper canes, so it just completely fell flat in terms of writing. They actually contradicted their own script when Sly said that. Also, the fact that Bob was in the game completely ruined Le Parodox as a villain on a conceptual level, because if he really wanted to erase the entire Cooper line, all he had to do was go back to the prehistoric era and kill Bob. So that also proves that Le Parodox was just an idiot. His entire plan was just stupid because he already had fame and fortune at the beginning of the game. It also doesn't help the fact that the entire boss fight is ass. It's QTEs where both characters spout insults from a middle schooler at each other, and then Le Parodox takes Sly's paraglider and flies away. And then he gets hit by a plane. Like, bro, what the hell is going on? At this point, it just feels like the writers completely gave up. Anyway, let's continue. Sly goes missing in action, and we hear about what happened to every Cooper ancestor, as well as the villains. I liked it better when Sly 2 did this because it was subtle with the text, rather than in Sly 4, it's voice acted from Bentley, but that's just a nitpick. So what did I think about Sly 4? Well, this game fails at every single aspect, from a writing standpoint, to a gameplay perspective, to even the overall aesthetic. The music was cool until you realized that they overly relied on some of the older songs like Venice Espionage or the Hub World song from the Black Chateau. The dialogue was cringe, they completely butchered the characters, especially Penelope. There were no stakes or consequences whatsoever. The villains and their boss fights were trash. They even ruined the game's entire selling point, which was the Cooper ancestors. The missions were lacking variety and they dragged on for too long. There were little details in them like insta-fail parts or just overall frustrating sections that made me want to pull my hair out. The final battle was awful and I didn't like the fan service. Here is one way I would have fixed the story, and it's a small suggestion, so just hear me out. I would have made the story go like this. Sly convinces Bentley to let him go back in time to stop the Fiendish Five from killing off his parents. Then after he does this, he returns to the present where he creates this different timeline where he doesn't meet Bentley and Murray. Think of it like The Flash where Barry saved his mom. Because Sly changed a key event from the past, Clockwork doesn't get defeated, so he ends up being the main antagonist. Sly also finds out that Carmelita got married to a different character because he saved his parents. That would make it so that Sly learns a valuable lesson about time travel and not to take it lightly. It would also have reinforced his impulsiveness by having him give in to his intrusive thoughts. We probably would have got to see him break down mentally in a way. That's just how I would have written it. But this is what we got, unfortunately. I really wanted to like this game, I truly did, but it was incomprehensible how they managed to fuck up one of my favorite games from my childhood. If we somehow do get a Sly 5, because they hinted at it with Sly being trapped in ancient Egypt, I really hope Sanzaru learned from this game, or a different company, you know, a more capable company makes it. Hey, what's good, y'all? I hope you enjoyed this video. I just wanted to say that I really appreciate the support from the Sly Trilogy review. We hit 50 subs, so I do in fact plan to go live for y'all in the future, but I'm still trying to find a job. You know, I talked to Olive Garden and they said they wanted to go in a whole nother direction, whatever the hell that means. So I gotta find somewhere else to try to get a job at. I know I sound like a broken record, but again, that's why I may not be quite as active on here as I normally am. If you liked the video, please like and subscribe, and I'll see y'all in the next video. Peace.
That's why we're here. To keep them from resisting. To show them how wrong they are. How pointless it is. That they can be a part of something bigger. Or die.
I won't let you.
You want to die for this planet? Fine! What's 17 more years? I can always start again. Make another
game.